Hey there everyone, Zian over here from Nintendo Life, and today we are finally able to share with you our review of the Sega Genesis Mini console. Now, this review was actually written and edited entirely by me. Look at that! Miniaturized consoles are nothing new to Sega, as they've been releasing them well before Nintendo's classic NES and SNES consoles took the spotlight. The plug-and-play systems they produced with company AtGames usually carried a decent library of titles, but the quality of the consoles and its controllers have always been subpar at best. However, things are looking to finally change for Sega, as they've taken the production reins and are now in full control of their upcoming plug-and-play console, the Sega Genesis Mini. Sega has poured their all and then some into the upcoming plug-and-play console, and they've got a lot to show for it. A miniaturized Genesis Model 1 with most of the bells and whistles of the original, jam-packed with 42 games that have all been ported over by the masters themselves, M2. This sounds like an honest dream come true. So let's take a look and see what the Genesis Mini has to offer. First, let's talk about the hardware. The miniaturized Sega Genesis Mini looks absolutely adorable, especially alongside its original 1990s Model 1 counterpart. From the tiny yet functional power and reset buttons to the movable volume slider and cartridge door, this console oozes charm. The Sega Genesis Mini receives power through a standard micro USB port and connects to your TV through HDMI. And all necessary cables are included in the box, which is also, by the way, presented with all 16 bits of the 90s fully intact. We do wish the console itself was built a little sturdier. The plastic isn't thin by any means, but feels a little on the light end. Plus, the console is lacking any sort of grip on its bottom to keep it in place. One wrong tug of a controller during a heated match of Street Fighter could easily send the system flying. 2 replica Genesis 3-button controllers are also included, and they look and feel just as good as you remember, if not better. Buttons are tight and responsive, and the floatiness found in the original controller's D-pad is absent in this version. Each controller also comes wired with a lengthy 6-foot USB cord, unlike the pitiful 3-foot cord found on the NES and SNES classic controllers. Which thankfully in turn means Sega is ditching the unreliable wireless IR sensors that AtGames used to use for the controllers in the past. These controllers scream quality and are exactly what you hope to find in a premium first-party product like this. Now it's time to talk about the games. The Sega Genesis Mini comes packed with a whopping 42 games, featuring a slew of Sega-published titles and a few sprinkled in here and there from the likes of Capcom, Konami, and a few other developers. And don't worry, you won't find any unlicensed shovelware in this package either. You'll also want to keep in mind that each region's list of games will vary, so if you're planning to order yourself a Mega Drive Mini from Europe or Japan, you'll have a different lineup of games. We'll go ahead and throw up a list of the North American region Genesis exclusive games right now. And next, we'll throw up a list of all of the games that are available on the Genesis Mini and the Mega Drive. Not only did Sega double the lineup of games on the Genesis Mini versus the number packed into the SNES Classic, but depending on who you ask, it also outperforms due to the sheer quality of its many titles. It includes a majority of the classics from series like Phantasy Star, Sonic, Streets of Rage, and ToeJam and Earl, but also includes a ton of hard-to-find titles that could cost a pretty penny to buy physically nowadays, like Castlevania Bloodlines and Contra Hard Corps, to name a few. Sega even tossed in a few bonus titles, like the essentially never-released Tetris, and a new port of Darius. The Sega Genesis Mini also includes a helping of simultaneous multiplayer titles to put that second controller to good use. You can clean the streets with a friend in Streets of Rage 2, then take on each other in Street Fighter 2 Special Championship Edition, and then when the fighting has finally ceased, you can jump right back into it with a chaotic match of Tetris. Sega has made sure to include a wide variety of titles to not overindulge in any one genre. And while there are some huge titles missing from this list, Rystar, Rocket Knight Adventures, Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles, Zombies Ate My Neighbors. We understand it would be impossible to please everyone. Even though every title on this list might not suit your fancy, we think there is enough to keep most people happy. Next, we'll talk about its performance. Sega has had quite the reputation of releasing some fairly awful clone consoles in the past with games. Their consoles and controllers were typically cheaply manufactured. Worse though was the emulation quality, which was severely unkept, leaving games broken or with completely brutalized soundtracks and effects, leaving them a mess to play. Thankfully, Sega has hired back the folks who worked on the Sega Ages line of games to handle the emulation, M2. And needless to say, they've put in some hard work, but it's all paid off. Games play flawlessly, and as they should in the modern era. Some purists may be able to notice some minor inconsistencies between these and their original versions, but any differences that might exist weren't apparent to us. The Genesis Mini outputs a 720p image with a few possible image settings. You're able to select a standard 4:3 aspect ratio, or you can stretch the image. And beyond the ability to slap one of two wallpapers behind your game, there isn't really much else to help customize your image. We would have liked to see the inclusion of some extra screen filters like scan lines or more wallpapers. However, that's just us being picky. Now, its home menu may not be as elaborate as its friendly rival system, but its menu is fairly clean and does the job, showing off your library of games without any hiccups. Selecting a game will give you a brief background on the title or series, and will tell you the year it was released. You're also able to sort the library by alphabet, genre, the year they released, and the maximum number of players. Some of the sound effects on the menus can also get a tad annoying after a while, but what easily makes up for it is the newly included menu theme composed by Yuzo Koshiro, composer of the Streets of Rage series. It's an original tune exclusive to the Genesis Mini that was created with the same Yamaha 2612 sound chip found in the original Genesis. And one nice leg up on the competitors is the ability to return to the home menu without having to get up and reset the system. When playing a game, you can hold down the start button on your controller for about 3 seconds, and you'll be taken to a menu where you can save your current progress, load an old save state, reset the game, or simply return to the home menu. It's a nice touch that our late night legs are extremely thankful they included. While the Genesis may not have had as many groundbreaking and infinitely replayable titles as the Super Nintendo did, it still has a treasure trove of great games that are begging to be rediscovered, and the Genesis Mini features some of the best of the best. Its hardware plays and feels like it should, and aside from the game library, that really is the most important thing. Plus, with the added addition of save states, more will have the courage to venture through some of these games' toughest challenges. It's obvious to see that this wasn't just another product for Sega. The Genesis Mini is a well-crafted love letter to Genesis and Sega fans alike, and is well deserving of the Sega Genesis seal of quality. The Sega Genesis Mini will be available online and at a number of local retailers on September 19th for $79.99 US. Feel free to let us know in the comments down below if you're planning to pick up a Sega Genesis Mini, and while you're at it, feel free to let us know what your favorite title is off of its list of games. And if you enjoyed this video, why don't you go ahead and spin dash that like button, subscribe to Nintendo Life, and ring that notification bell to be notified whenever we release new videos. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Zian from Nintendo Life, and we'll see you next time. True story, I don't own a lot of Sega Genesis games, but one of them that I do own is a copy of Sonic 2, and if you can see, it's fairly beat up. And its reason for that is because I had just watched the creepypasta Ben Drowned Majora's Mask video with one of my friends, and we went to a local pawn shop and they had this on the shelf. And if you're familiar with the Ben Drowned story at all, you'll know why I bought this and why I shouldn't have. And we'll just leave it at that.